Lately, I've been building things.
Hi everyone, Katie here with Chase Studio Co. So I've gotten a lot of questions from you guys about artificial lighting. So today I'm going to show you what I do for a setup. But first I wanted to show you what my studio looks like and what I do for natural lighting. That way we can do a little compare and contrast so you can actually see what the before, the process, and what the after looks like when you compare a natural lit setup to an artificial one. So this right here is my setup. So I've got a south-facing window right here. I've got my backdrop laid out. And then I've got my Mark 5D 3i on my tripod. And I've got my Nifty 50. And then I also have a 24-70. And then over here, I have just a white sheet that I use as my backdrop, as kind of my faux wall. And then in this room, I also have a piece of white foam core and then a piece of black foam core. And so I'll use those as my reflectors that typically go on this end so I can bounce some of that natural light back. And later you'll see when we do artificial lighting, I'll have my light right here and I'll actually have my foam core up against the window. Again, just to bounce that light back in. So I have those pieces of foam core. I have these little clamps and I just clamp these, pull out one of these shelves, and I'll just clamp the reflector right on there and move it right next to it. So I'm going to do a setup real quick. That way you can see exactly what photo we're going to do, what setup we're going to do, and I'm going to photograph it on my camera, and then later when it's dark we'll come back and I'll hook up the lights and show you my setup, and then we'll take another picture, and that way we can compare and contrast.
Lately, I've been building things, castles and airplanes. I've been painting pictures from my dreams. Yeah, I'm done waiting. Whoa. Lately, I've been singing songs, playing numbers, throwing darts, folding bills and menus into paper hearts, and dancing in the rain. Whoa. This is the real life. I'm feeling so fine. It's gonna be my lucky day when the stars align and clouds have gone away. We're big enough to feel the Milky Way, and we're not afraid. It's my lucky day. Gonna fly around the world, let everybody know my time is now. All my friends at home are pointing from the ground, but I'm not coming down on my lucky day. Today there's nothing stopping me. There are no red lights in the street.
Okay, so we've got the setup. I've got everything all laid out here. I've got a chair with my white foam core bouncing some light back, and I've got my camera all dialed in. I've already been up there. I messed with the exposure and whatever I needed to, so all we gotta do, give it a click, and and apparently that's it for now. So we'll use that setup and we'll come back later with the artificial lighting and we'll take the same exact picture and I'll show you how. Okay, hey guys, we're back and it's nighttime now, so I'm gonna run you through the setup that I have and we'll get you going. So here I have my reflector, and you can use the white foam core that we used earlier, but because I have an actual reflector. I like to use this one, especially at night. It just seems to bounce back a little bit more light in comparison to the foam core. But if you don't have one of these, feel free to use the white foam core. It's still gonna work. You might need more. You might need more pieces. You might need a white piece here and then another one at an angle, which won't be an issue if you're doing a flat lay, the overhead style like what we're doing here. It gets a little bit more tricky when you're doing them coming from this kind of 90-degree angle and you want, some type of background. That's when it gets a little bit tricky, just making sure that your reflector or your foam core isn't in the shot. But it's totally possible, totally doable, so don't freak out about that if you don't have a reflector. No need to run right out and purchase one. So this setup, I kept everything the same, so you'll see with the pictures that everything looks exactly the same except the flowers. I did have to take the flowers out or else they would have wilted and died on me. A good little tip for you is if your flowers are out for more than 5 minutes, cut the stems on them and put them back in water until you're ready to use them again. That way they won't wilt and die on you. Nobody likes wasting money like that. So everything else is set up nicely. I looked at my camera adjustments, and with this light, this is what I use for my lighting, and the kit that I have, which I'll link to below, it actually comes with 3. So here in this setup, I'm only using 1. And this awesome light actually has 2 switches on it. So right now it has only 1 on, and then, and that's 2. So getting that nice daylight glow that we had earlier actually only requires 1 light bulb, and I use the daylight bulbs. I find that the daylight bulbs that you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's, they're LED and they have a bluer tint to them, so they're going to be closer to your actual natural daylight. And these lights come with a soft box. It has this nice kind of cloth film on it. This is, kind of in comparison to the umbrella lights, which the umbrella light would essentially be facing the other way and shining into an umbrella and casting light out that way. So there's a whole bunch of different, light setups that you can get. They also have those ergo tabletop ones, and I'm sure you've seen those. They have light boxes where if you're doing product photography, you just stick the object in there and it's lit up all around. There's so many options. This is just what I got as a starter, and it's really it's worked. It suited me quite well. You can get things called the flex mats. I'll have to look that up and link to it below. But if you're ready to spend some big money, they're $2,000 to $3,000. So you really don't need to do that, especially as a beginner, or if you're not sure how much you're really going to either like artificial or be doing artificial lighting. These are great. I got these off of Amazon. Again, I'll link to them below. They were $100, $150 for 3 lights, and I only use 1 right now. So again, we've got the whole setup nice. It looks great. I've been looking back and forth between the live and my previous image, and everything looks pretty good. I am going to move this light back just a bit, and so you'll want to make sure that you're either tethered or that you're going back and forth to check your LCD, because what you can run into, the reason why I had to move it back a bit is because this light, I'm actually getting a little bit of a glare right here, and I can see that in my LCD. When I'm down, you can't see that. So I'm just going to keep adjusting the light a bit. And I'm going to click back and forth between my daylight and here in the studio. Okay, so I'm still getting that glare, which that's all right. That means I just need to adjust some more. So these lights are really nice. You can actually adjust the height of them, and you can adjust this box. So this is all that artificial lighting is really about, is finding the right placement for your light. So I'm going to adjust this one. I'm going to raise it a bit. And then I'm going to adjust the angle of the head of the box. So what that's going to do is actually bring some more light over here where it was looking a little bit dark. I'm going to move this forward again just so I can get some more light on this piece. And then I'm going to check my screen again and see how we're looking. Okay. So I am still getting a bit of a glare, so we're really just going to keep adjusting the light until it gets to how we want. And this is one reason why food photographers actually love matte plates, is because you don't get the glare when you have a matte plate. That's why you'll see a lot of food photographers using pottery, like handmade pottery, in a flat matte glaze. Okay. All right, so that's looking pretty good. There's still a little bit of glare, but I'll show you how to fix that in post. So the biggest thing is that you are getting a nice clear picture, and to match daylight, you're going to want to get the angle just right so that you're having more of a concentrated amount of light closer to your light source. So it's all in how you angle it. It takes a lot of just kind of testing it. It really does. But I tend to find that up and at a 45-degree works really well, and also down and straight across works well. And you'll also see a lot of backlit. And what backlit is if I had my light over there and then had, let's say, a curtain or a sheer blanket kind of put in the middle as a diffuser, then that light would come through, but it wouldn't be like there's a big box behind all my subjects, right? Okay, so we're going to use back button focus. Make sure we're nice and focused in there. Boom, done. And then I'm going to take a couple more shots just to kind of show you the difference in what it's going to look like if you were to have the box elsewhere. And I'll show you that in post also.
Lately, I've been building things, castles and airplanes. I've been painting pictures from my dreams. Yeah, I'm done waiting. Whoa. Lately, I've been singing songs, playing numbers, throwing darts, folding bills and menus into paper hearts, and dancing in the rain. Whoa. This is the real life. I'm feeling so fine. It's gonna be my lucky day when the stars align and clouds have gone away. We're big enough to feel the Milky Way, and we're not
right, and I think that's it. So I'm gonna pack this up and then I'll meet you in post. All right, hey guys, here we are. I've uploaded the images into Lightroom, and I'm just going to show you how to edit in Lightroom, and we'll kind of go over these photos because most of you seem to have Lightroom, and if you want, we might dabble into some Photoshop. I'll show you a few little tricks that I kind of learned and that might help you out. But it seems to be most new photographers and even veterans are finding ease with Lightroom. So we'll start in here and just kind of take it away. All right, so this right here, the image that you're seeing is the one in natural light. So this is the first one that we did with the window over here, and you've got a lot of natural light just kind of pouring in, and you notice that there's kind of just a overall softness to this whole image. So now we're going to start moving through our artificial light. So immediately you can see it's a bit more harsh. There's a bit more of contrast to the images. So you see, obviously we kind of went, we had to flip. So we still have the same image, but instead of having our light source over here, we're having our light source over here. Okay, so we're just kind of going to come through here. And remember that your camera adjustments are going to change also. Oh, I like that one, so I'm going to rate that one with a 1, just so I know, and I'm going to rate our first one here with a 2, just so I know which one is our natural light. And then as I'm finding which artificial light I like best, kind of going and rating that one appropriately. Excuse me. So just know it's going to take a lot of practice and, altering where your light is and getting used to how soft it is. So here, this one, you can see this is where I started doing more of the backlight kind of angle. So here, our light source was up in this area and it was coming in, and I had it pretty close. And that one I just adjusted the angle of it. So we'll stay with the same angle just so that you guys can see. So I'm going to, let's see. All right, so this is our natural light. Here's the artificial light that I feel best replicates it. It's a very soft look. This is the one where we had our light over here, and I pulled it back quite a ways, and I only had one light on. So it really kind of gave that light an opportunity to just softly fall on the subjects. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to filter out so that I can look at these. All right, so here is my natural light. Here's my artificial light. So now you can see that the natural light is actually looking a bit more harsh than the artificial light. But I'm gonna take you through my editing process, and we'll just see how close we can get these and see which one we like better. Okay, here we go. So I like my photos a bit on the brighter side, so I tend to bump up my exposure. I love high contrast in my images as well, so I always bump up my contrast, and then that tends to have me bring the highlights down a bit because I don't want to get all these areas blown out. And then I like to play around with shadows. In this case, I'm going to bump up the shadows a little bit, but I'm going to bring my blacks down to get more of that kind of deep contrast. Let's just see what's looking good for the whites. So again, I like mine really bright, so I'm gonna bump that up quite a bit. So now you're getting more of the feel of like a sunny day as opposed to the actual wintry mix that was outside of the house today. I'm gonna bump up the vibrance just a bit. Then I'm gonna come down here. And I like to use this enable profile corrections sometimes. It doesn't always work the way that I want it to, but I like to at least try it and see how it looks. So here it popped up my Canon EF 50mm. It did it automatically. Sometimes it won't, so just be aware that that's something that you may have to go in and find, and you can just use these drop down menus. So let's see, that's the before, after. I like that it evens out these corners. They were kind of dark, and now adding that profile correction just kind of flattens the whole thing out. Then I like to come down here to dehaze, and again, it's just kind of bumping up that contrast. It makes the image just so much more clear. Okay, so I bump that up a little bit. And I'm thinking that that looks pretty good. I am going to try playing with the curves. That's one of my favorite things to play with. I love what it does. Oh, let's see. Alright, I'm going to bring that down just a little bit. You can see you can adjust multiple parts of this curve. I'm going to bring that down just a bit. Come up here to like where my highlights are. And I want them up, but I don't want them too far up because I don't want these little grapes to get blown out where the light is hitting them. And then I might need to adjust right here just a bit. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. And then I'm actually going to come in with my brush. And so I have it on a new layer. And I'm going to put that back to 0 so it's not adjusting that. And I'm going to use a bracket key to make it a bit bigger. And I'm going to come over here and highlight my camera. So what I actually want to do is adjust the blackness on it. So I'm going to bump that up. I'm going to bump my blacks down. I just want to give it a little more rich of a black color. And bring the color of that back down. So you can see it did a really great job of just highlighting exactly what I was aiming to adjust. And so I got to bring the pinks back up because it adjusted, kind of auto adjusted into the greens, and that's definitely not something that I want. Okay, so I'm just finding there. I like that. I think that looks great. So click done. So then we're back to our original panel, and so right here you can see this is our before of the daylight. This is our after. It's, you know, not a huge amount of difference, but it's, I mean, it's crisp. You can see it. You know, we didn't fake you out at all with it, right? So we just have over here, we have a very soft you know, kind of pastel-y looking photo. Over here we've got nice, crisp, vibrant colors, and that's my style. That's what I like. You can adjust to your liking. I might actually come back in here. So I'm actually going to come back in here and bring the vibrance down just a touch. So what I'm looking at is the comparison between these flowers and these ones, and this is showing way more dull than over here. I didn't like the amount of vibrance that was in these flowers, but it's definitely more close to realistic, which is definitely something that we're going for, at least in this photo. Okay, so now we're going to come over here. Oh, fun little trick I'm going to show you. So all these adjustments that we've made, I can come over here to presets, and I'm going to label this spring flower. And all of these preset, or all of these actions that I've done over here are going to be in here. I'm going to hit create, and then I'm going to come over to this one, and I'm going to apply the same presets. So then we look back and forth, and it's looking pretty similar. This one, the exposure looks a bit more, so this just kind of gives us a good starting point. So then I can come in here and just make a few minor adjustments. And I'm going to come down here and add some sharpening, which I didn't do to my other one, so I'll be going back to add that. Add a little bit of luminescence just to kind of soften the edges. You'll be able to see them here. So as you sharpen them, you kind of see this, you know, grain appear. So I still want to add a good amount of sharpness, but I want to have a softness to them. So we're gonna, so I bumped up the sharpness and bumped up the luminescence just a tad. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to do a little compare and contrast just to kind of see where we are. So here I've got the artificial light, and then I'm going to drag my natural light up for comparison. So here is the natural light, here is the artificial light. And I'm going to go over here and just, actually I'm going to look at my settings, 5715, I'm going to come over here, I'm going to do 57, 15, that way. Okay, so now let's go back. All right, so now looking at them side by side, you know, even on this. Okay, so here we have the two images side by side, and you can see they look pretty darn similar. So, you know, obviously we have a little bit of a light swap, which, I mean, you can easily fix that. We could have, you know, taken the actual background that it was on and flipped it around to create, you know, the perfect kind of scenario of, okay, before and after, or, you know, natural versus artificial. But I think you can really see it. You can get the idea. The only kind of huge difference between these two are these glares, and that's something that you're going to have to look out for when you're doing your artificial lighting. But even over here, just from the window, you can see there's a bit of a glare coming on here. So we can fix that though. So these are all things that you can fix in post, and that's kind of one of the things with, any type of photography is, how much do you want to fix? Well, you don't really want to fix everything. You want to get it right the first time. You want to get it right out of the camera, but you can't always see that. So I'm going to look here, and we can also see that this is the natural one. There's some softer shadows here, so just be aware of that. So I'm going to come over here, and I am actually going to show you how just bumping up the shadows just a bit and changing the highlights a tad, maybe bringing down the contrast a smidge, is going to soften these shadows for us to give us a more realistic or more natural light look. So let's take a look again. There you can see the shadows softened a bit. In comparison, these are definitely a lot more soft, and in here you could use a diffuser in between, so a sheet or even a clear bathroom curtain you could have put in between, and that diffuser is going to help to soften these shadows even more. But I think that looks pretty good for what we're doing. And let's see, I'm going to come back over here to the brush, and I'm going to shrink it down, and I'm clicking and dragging. So I clicked and dragged over that highlight there. I'm going to come over here, click and drag over this one. You can see that the color's changing a little bit, and that's just because of my settings. So I'm going to come over here and get that back to what it should look like. And then I'm going to I'm really looking at this one over here, just to give you an idea of what I'm looking at. And so I can bring the exposure down on it, bring the highlights down, or I can boost them, or just kind of play with it until it looks right. So you can see exactly what's highlighted there. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to get rid of these highlights right here. So what I've done is I've come over here to the spot removal, and I'm going to zoom in. I want to get as close to this as I can. I'm going to take it one spot at a time. And I'm going to make my little brush thing here just the size that I need. And I'm going to click and drag it. And then Lightroom is going to tell me where it is they want to pull from. And so you can see that they're matching it to right above that. And I'm going to come up here and adjust Okay, so you can see now that that's gone away. So then I'm going to come back out. And now we don't have that glare there anymore. So then I'm going to, and I'll come back in after and adjust this just a bit more. Actually, I can do that right now. I'm going to feather it just a bit, just so that there's not such a hard edge. And then I'm going to click done. And then I'm going to come over to this other glare that I have. And again, take that spot brush and click and drag and cover that light. And I really just want to cover exactly what I need. I'm not trying to go outside of it. And so see, you want to be careful of where it pulls from. I'm going to zoom out just a bit. And you can adjust where it's pulling from. So you're just going to click and drag. Let's see if I can find a good place. Okay, and I'm going to actually come back in here. Make sure you click on it. Alright, so my computer is not liking me running all these programs, doing everything at once. It's having a hard time catching up. So I'm going to come back in and do that afterwards. So this one I might actually take into Photoshop just to get it a bit better. Okay, yeah, so my computer is not liking me trying to multitask everything, but that's okay. So that's something that I can do on my own, but you get the idea. You can just go in with either the brush or the spot removal and you know, just kind of play around. You're going to play around with all these settings over here. So one more thing that I want to do, I want to look again at my reference and active. And so what I do want is to actually come in here and make these blacks a little more black, but we don't want to go too much because we want it to still make sense for where the light is coming from. Okay. Alright, so that's pretty much it. So the biggest things that you're going to look for and that you want to adjust for when you're actually photographing are, again, these harsh shadows that you're going to see. They're much more defined versus a natural light coming in, which has a very soft glow. But you can make adjustments with that by using a diffuser or even just fiddling with the placement of your light. And you're going to want to be aware of, these types of glares. We have them over here, so it's not a huge deal. But if you are using a mug, or like in this case, I'm using a camera, and the glass is clearly reflecting the light, you just want to make sure that you can't see a box in there, but most people aren't going to notice that anyhow. So if you're trying to do your own stock photography or your own flat lays, it's just something to be aware of, and I really think you're going to be fine. And I'm just making a few minor adjustments just because I really like the rich colors. Okay, so again, there's our final look, and I hope that helped. I hope it wasn't as scary as using artificial light seems, and I wish you luck, and I would love to hear and see how you use artificial lighting. And if you want to tag me with hashtag ChaseStudioCo on Instagram, I would love to see it. If you have any questions or you want to see more tutorials and links to the products that I used in this video tutorial, then they will be below, and drop me a link below.